I thought I had everything figured out. My name is Jake Harrison, and for the longest time, I believed my life was solid, like a well-built house with no cracks in the foundation. I had a good job as a regional manager at Visionary Concepts, a successful advertising firm in Boston. I was married to Emily, my college sweetheart, and for over 15 years, we had built a life together. We had a nice home in the suburbs, shared memories, and a history I thought was unshakable. But things started to change. Slowly at first, so slowly that I didn't even notice. Emily became distant. It wasn't dramatic, there were no shouting matches or slamming doors. Just little things. She smiled less, spent more time away from home, and always had her phone with her. I remember when we used to share everything, no secrets, no locked doors. But then she started getting texts late at night, taking calls in the other room, always quick to end the conversation if I walked in. It bothered me, but I didn't push it. I trusted her. After all, this was Emily. My Emily. But the doubts crept in. One night at the company's annual gala, something clicked. My boss, Patrick Walsh, had always been a charming guy, charismatic, successful, and always the center of attention. I admired him in the way you admire someone who's made it to the top. But that night, I noticed how his hand lingered on Emily's back a little too long, the way they shared private smiles across the room. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. Patrick was like that with everyone, right? He flirted, he laughed, but it didn't mean anything. Or at least that's what I wanted to believe. Then it got worse. Emily started staying out late, saying she was meeting friends or working on freelance projects. I didn't want to be the insecure husband, so I didn't question her. But every time she left, that uneasy feeling grew in my gut. One Friday night, when she said she was having dinner with a friend, I decided to get ahead on work and head home. Early from the office. That's when I saw her car parked outside the Roost, Patrick's favorite bar. I don't know what possessed me to follow her inside. Maybe I wanted proof, maybe I just needed to see with my own eyes that everything was okay. But when I walked into that bar, everything I'd been denying crashed down on me. There they were. Emily and Patrick, sitting at a small table in the back, their heads bent close together. His hand was on her leg. She was laughing at something he said, that same laugh that used to be mine. My heart felt like it stopped in my chest. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, unable to move, unable to breathe. I thought about going over there, confronting them both, demanding an explanation. But I couldn't. I just couldn't. So I turned around and left, my mind racing, my heart shattering with every step I took out of that bar. When I got home, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I just sat there, staring at the wall, wondering. Gee, how my life had come to this. How had I missed the signs? How long had this been going on? The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, was betraying me with my own boss. My career, my marriage, my trust, it all felt like it had been ripped apart in a matter of minutes. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I confronted Emily, casually at first. I asked her how dinner with her friends had gone. She hesitated, but only for a moment. It was fine, she said, avoiding my eyes. I wanted to scream at her right then, but I held back. I needed more. I needed her to tell me the truth, but she didn't. A few days later, while Emily was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I looked through her phone. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the messages, my heart pounding in my chest. And there it was, in black and white. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. It was from Patrick. The texts between them were explicit, filled with secret meaning. And whispered confessions. Emily came out of the bathroom, her hair wrapped in a towel, and saw me holding her phone. I've never seen her face go so pale, her eyes widen in fear. Jake. I can explain, she stammered. Explain what? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. though inside, I was boiling. Explain how you've been lying to me for months. How you've been sleeping with my boss behind my back. She tried to speak, but I didn't let her. How long, Emily? How long have you been seeing him? A few months, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I felt like I was going to be sick. A few months. Months of lies, of sneaking around, of pretending everything was fine while my life crumbled behind my back. I didn't mean for it to happen, she sobbed. I didn't want to hurt you, Jake. I'm so sorry. But sorry wasn't enough. Nothing could fix the betrayal that cut so deep. She had shattered everything we had built, everything I thought was real. For the next few days, I stayed at a friend's house. I couldn't be in the same room as her, couldn't stand to look at the woman who had destroyed me. Emily tried calling, texting, even showing up at my friend's house, begging me to talk to her, to let her explain. But there was nothing left to explain. She had made her choice, and it wasn't me. Then came Patrick. He had the audacity to approach me at work, as if we could somehow talk this out like two rational adults. I remember him standing in front of me, with that smug smile on his face. Jake, he said, like nothing had happened, I think we need to clear the air. I clenched my fists so hard I thought my knuckles would crack. There's nothing to clear, I growled. Stay the hell away from me. And stay the hell away from my wife. Patrick had the nerve to shrug, as if it was no big deal. Jake, I didn't mean for things to turn out this way. But we're all adults here. Emily made her own decisions. I don't know what came over me, but before I knew it, my fist had connected with his jaw. He stumbled back, his hand on his face, but I wasn't done. I hit him again, harder this time. Everything I'd been holding in came flooding out, years of loyalty and trust destroyed by the man standing in front of me. It took 2 coworkers to pull me off him, and I left without saying another word. I knew I couldn't stay at Visionary Concepts after that. I couldn't work for the man who had not only betrayed my trust but taken everything from me. Before I left, I made sure to gather every piece of evidence I could find, emails, expense reports, everything that showed how Patrick had been using company funds for his personal affair with Emily. I wasn't going to let him walk away from this without consequences. I brought everything to the board of directors. They were shocked. Within days, Patrick was forced to resign. His career was over, and as far as I was concerned, it was the least he deserved. As for Emily, we divorced shortly after. I moved out of the house and into a small apartment, starting over from scratch. The pain didn't go away overnight, hell, it didn't go away for years. But eventually, I started to rebuild. I opened my own advertising firm. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. I had learned the hard way that trust, once broken, can never be fully repaired. But I also learned that I was stronger than I ever knew. After the divorce, I threw myself into my work, trying to fill the silence that followed me home every night. My business grew quickly. Clients liked my directness, my willingness to fight for their brands like I was fighting for my own. But the success didn't fill the void that Emily had left behind. Some nights, I couldn't help but lie awake and wonder what could have been different. Could I have stopped her from leaving me, from betraying me? Did I miss the signs, or was I too caught up in my own life to see what was right in front of me? The answers never came, only the cold truth that I'd been betrayed by the 2 people I trusted the most. And no amount of work or money would ever fix that. But then something changed. Over time, I found myself beginning to enjoy the quiet moments. The silence in my apartment wasn't oppressive anymore. It became peaceful. I started reading again, went on solo hikes, and picked up photography, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for. Slowly, I was rediscovering who I was outside of my marriage, outside of the person I'd been with Emily. A year after the divorce, I was invited to a colleague's wedding. I debated whether or not to go. Weddings were complicated for me now, too many reminders of promises that were easily broken. But something made me go, and I'm glad I did. I stood in the back, watching the bride and groom exchange vows, and for the first time in years, I felt at peace. I wasn't angry anymore. Love, for all its risks and potential for pain, was still something worth believing in. That night, I met Claire. She wasn't anything like Emily, and that was a good thing. We talked for hours, nothing heavy, just light conversation, enjoying each other's company. I didn't expect anything to come of it, but as I left the wedding, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I was ready to let someone in again. Over the next few months, I continued to heal. My business grew, my friendships deepened, and I felt like myself again. I wasn't the man defined by betrayal anymore. I was just Jake. And that felt good. One afternoon, about 2 years after the divorce, I ran into Emily. It was at a coffee shop downtown, purely by chance. She looked different, older, maybe a little lost. We exchanged polite hellos, talked briefly about our lives. There was no anger, no sadness. Just two people who had once shared everything, now living separate lives. As I walked away, I felt a sense of closure. The chapter of my life with Emily was over, not with a dramatic finale, but with a quiet understanding. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't love her either. I had moved on. And for the first time in years, I felt free.